Howdy, everyone. Matt here. I got a question for you. How often do you think people would rather have their symptoms treated than the actual cause? Let's talk about it. All right, everyone. First and foremost, so let me introduce myself. My name is Matt. I am Matt the PT, coming at you with another video, another topic of something in the physical therapy world. This one, something that's quite old. I know I have heard it for a long time. But it's getting a lot of popularity with tweets and things like this right here. And it's saying that doctors are more interested in treating symptoms than the actual cause. And I think that is really just dumb. I don't think that is what is actually going on. But I think that there's something else going on that people are probably not really ready to accept. I'm going to focus this talk more on the rehab world because that's where I work. That's what I do. But I'm going to tell you this. I find that very often when somebody comes in with a pain or with some kind of symptom, now symptoms can run a large variety of things. Pain is one of the biggest ones, and there are all sorts of descriptors of pain: aching, soreness, dull, sharp, all those descriptors of it. But pain is a symptom. I tell it to everyone. Pain is a symptom. A symptom of what? Well, that's what we got to figure out. Pain can come from psychological stuff. You can be under a lot of stress and it produces pain. We can have it from serious things. You can have a fracture somewhere. You can have a cancer somewhere. You have an infection internally. It produces pain. We can have it produced from mechanical issues. So something is getting stretched or pulled or something, a trauma, something happens. It produces pain. And pain is a symptom, along with things like numbness, tingling. Weakness can be a symptom. Loss of motion can be a symptom of something. Tightness in an area can be a symptom of something. But how often is it that when somebody's there, it comes to sit in front of you, they only want you to focus on that symptom? They only do something to make this feel better. Put the heat on it. Do the traction. Do the taping, do the cupping, do the scraping, do some of that stuff. And that's all they end up wanting to do, even though it provides just a temporary change in those symptoms. I'm going to go a bit further. How often have you had somebody issue a complaint against you because you wouldn't treat their symptoms? I've had a handful of those people over the years. Happened a couple years ago. I had somebody with a shoulder issue sitting in front of me, evaluated them, wanted to give them some exercises just to start with. I cannot remember what the diagnosis was, but they were saying no, we need to do the heat and the stem, and trying to explain that's not going to provide you a big benefit. That is literally all they wanted to do. They wanted to do no exercise, no even passive stuff, nothing. They only wanted to do the heat and the stem on their shoulder. That was it. And actually, afterwards, complained to the management that I would not do that. How in the world is that going to help them? Despite no matter what I did. Now, yes, I know somebody's going to come in. Well, that can help with it. Yeah, I understand that. I understand that you can utilize things like that to decrease symptoms, to increase mobility and movement. I understand that. I completely. Before you come in here to try to do that, I understand it. Okay, I understand it. Okay, if you want to come in and talk about it, that's a communication thing. It's just not one person talking and waiting for the other one to shut up just so you can start talking back. No, it is a back and forth. I understand it. But this person, that's all they wanted. And I'm pretty sure that some of you have had those people over the years that's all that they've wanted to do. And if you really don't believe me as well with what people, look online. I can't tell you how much my social media is full of these modality devices. How many massagers do you see that you strap onto a body part, or it's a gun type thing that you put on somewhere? Creams, lotions, oils, all that stuff, some kind of light doohickey that you put on something. How often are you seeing these things that only treat symptoms, that are pushed so heavily online and people rave about them and they think they're the best thing ever? But it's look, that is not treating the cause of it. You are just providing a short-term manipulation of your symptoms. You are just treating the symptoms. And I think this leads to the other thing. that people don't want to accept what the cause of their symptoms are. I don't think people at times often want to accept. Now, there are times they will. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. But I don't believe many times that people want to accept. I utilize MDT as the basis of my treatment. You come in, we're going to screen your spine. And I often will find that people say, hey, we move the spine around, that changes up some other symptom. Maybe motion gets better somewhere, maybe pain, maybe something gets better. Okay, we need to explore this a little bit more. And I've had a good number of people over the years, they got upset about that. Like, no, you never did anything to my shoulder. You didn't do anything to my hip or my knee, or you didn't do anything for it. And, and they got upset and left. It's like, you came and wanted an answer. Why did you reject the answer that you got? Because it didn't fit a narrative that you've wanted. But I was showing you evidence to say, hey, your symptoms changed when we moved this other area. Well, I think we need to look into that a little bit more. If you think it's wild that people just like having their symptoms treated with those feel-good things, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Back to the video. And I even think that goes over to the other stuff. The one thing that people keep posting about, this one drives me nuts. People are posting about this. Doctors aren't prescribing, for people to change your diet and exercise and get enough sleep and go outside. I'm going to tell you this. I'm in my 40s, and I'm going to go back 30 years to when I was a young kid. I have heard people saying that for 30 years. I have heard the adults around me say that stuff. Doctors need to prescribe exercise and change your diet. Okay, for 30 years, I've heard people saying that. For 30 years, yet those same people don't change their eating. They don't exercise. They don't get enough sleep. They don't go outside. They don't do the things. And I'll be honest as well. I believe that there's a good number of people that if they went to the doctor and the doctor told them, you know what? I need you to cut out 300 calories a day just of something. I'll teach you some stuff how to cut out 2 sodas a day or remove the sauce off some food. You could save 300 calories a day. If you walked 8 to 10,000 steps, pedometers are pretty cheap. You can get that. Get you good 8 hours of sleep. Whatever time you got to wake up, just go back and go outside every day. People would be mad. They would walk out going, he just told me to do this, or she just told me to do that. I already knew what to do. Then why weren't you doing it? That's the thing. I don't think people really want to just accept what is actually going on with the cause. And you're probably saying, Matt, you're just rambling about this thing and all upset about it. What do we need to do about it? Well, yeah, I want to talk about that as well. And I want to hear what you believe we should be doing about this. I don't really think it's going after those people that are saying this stuff, because if you do, then they can use you as an enemy. And that's one thing that a lot of this stuff does. If it's an us versus them, and then if you speak out against it, then you're one of them. And then that just makes everything worse. But I think it starts with every person and educating them about what are symptoms and what are causes of things, and to really say you need to take some accountability. And I believe that with healthcare, with treatment of things, that there's a burden of accountability on both parties. The patient needs to carry some accountability, and me as the provider has to carry some accountability as well. And it can vary at times. Sometimes it's more on one end and more on the other end. So that we need to have that. I know. I just had a discussion with somebody this week. Patient came in and was saying that, they have this tightness in their arm. It's just really tight. And I was saying, well, this is probably coming from your neck. And we, started examining their neck. And you can just see it just wasn't really wanting to click, and they were kind of tuning out. And I'll just bring up, it's like, what's going on through your mind right now? Why, what do you think about this? And it kind of throws them off a little bit. But you say, like, why are you, this? And they may say, well, I was told this or I was told that. I said, okay, well, let's look through our testing that we did, the stuff that we did. Now, we did X, Y, and Z to your shoulder, your arm, or that, and it didn't really produce anything. But we did this other stuff over here, and it did produce it. Did you see that? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, things like tightness, because this person had complained about tightness in their arm. I said, you just don't all of a sudden become tight like that. I was like, a muscle just doesn't all of a sudden go and get short and gets really tight. You're active and moving. How can something get really tight when you move it all the time? And they're like, oh, okay. So more that education and that discussion and that talk that went on with them to say, like, oh, look at the evidence of these things that we found and how that changed it. And then they could see in their head, okay, I'm getting on board. And saying, okay, I'm going to try these things. We're going to try this, and we're going to see what it does. Let's see what it does. I've also started this thing because sometimes people start, they'll grab random stuff as well. I tell them, I said, you know what? Let's take a little box. We're going to take our imaginary box. All that stuff that you're doing for that, let's put it in that box. We're going to put it in there, and we're going to put that box up on the shelf. Now, we're not going to get rid of that box. That box is going to be right there. If we need to get something out of that box, we can go grab that box, and we can get out whatever we want. But that box is going to stay right there. Let's focus on this, and if we need something from that box, we will go get it. And that's been a very helpful thing to do as well with talking to people. And I really think that's a big thing. With all of this going on, I think we need to focus, and it just comes down to education. That if it's, are you actually wanting the symptoms treated? Is that all you're wanting with this heat? Because this heat will just treat your symptoms. That thing that you want, it's just going to treat symptoms. It's not going to treat the cause. And if you want to do it, we can sit here and keep treating the cause. We can keep treating the symptoms. And if you don't get better, what do we want to do? What are you going to do if we do this? Let's see what it actually causes. And if you have any better ways of doing that or discussing that or talking about it, please share that down in the comments below. So I think I've rambled a bit too much. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you a copay or anything like that. And until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of your patients. I'll see you then.